In the dead of night, in the quietest corners of occupied Poland, a young woman named Irena Sendler moved like a ghost. She wasn't a soldier, at least not in the traditional sense. She was a social worker, armed not with a gun, but with a network of brave souls, a heart full of courage, and a listening ear that could detect danger from a mile away. Her mission was one of impossible odds: to save children from the Warsaw Ghetto, a place designed for despair and death. The year was 1942. The walls of the ghetto stood tall, a grim barrier separating families and sealing fates. Inside, life was a daily struggle for a scrap of bread, for a moment of warmth, for another sunrise. Outside, Irena and her network, codenamed Jagoda, were planning their clandestine operations. They knew the risks. Capture meant certain death, not just for them, but for everyone they tried to help. But the sound of children's cries was louder than any fear. Irena heard the metaphorical footsteps long before they arrived. She heard them in the changing guard schedules, in the hushed, fearful whispers on the street, in the tightening grip of the occupying forces. She knew time was running out. Every new regulation, every fresh wave of terror was a sign that the final terrible act was approaching. She and her team had to move faster, be smarter, and take bigger risks. So they devised ingenious, heart-stopping methods of escape. Some children were sedated and placed in small wooden boxes with air holes, carried out as cargo. Others were hidden in coffins, potato sacks, or even smuggled through the city's sewer system, a dark, foul, and terrifying journey to freedom. Irena, using her permit as a social worker to enter the ghetto to inspect sanitary conditions, would guide them. She would talk to mothers, promising to find safe havens for their children, asking them to trust a stranger with their most precious gift. Imagine the choice these parents faced: to let their child go into an unknown future with no guarantee of seeing them again was an act of unimaginable love and sacrifice. Irena would memorize the children's real names and their new adopted identities. She wrote these names on thin strips of paper, rolled them up, and buried them in glass jars under an apple tree in a friend's garden. She hoped that one day after the war, she could dig them up and reunite the families. It was a promise whispered into the dark, a tiny seed of hope planted in a world of ashes. One day, the footsteps she'd been hearing in the distance finally arrived at her own door. On October 20th, 1943, the Gestapo came for her. They ransacked her apartment, but they never found the jars of names. She was taken to the notorious Powiat prison, where she was brutally interrogated and tortured. They wanted names. They wanted her network, but Irena never broke. She endured the pain, protecting the secrets that kept thousands alive. Sentenced to death, she was saved at the very last moment. The Polish resistance had bribed a guard to add her name to a list of executed prisoners. She was left unconscious in the woods, but she was alive. Even after her narrow escape, Irena didn't stop. She took on a new identity and continued her work from the shadows, her resolve unbroken. By the end of the war, Irena Sendler and her network had saved over 2,500 children from the Warsaw Ghetto. She moved before her enemies knew, sensing the danger and acting with incredible bravery. Her story was largely unknown for decades, hidden like the very jars she buried. But today, we remember her. We remember the quiet social worker who heard the footsteps of tyranny and answered with a symphony of courage, saving an entire generation. Thank you for watching. If you were moved by Irena's story, please like this video and subscribe for more tales of incredible heroes.